Hi everyone, hope you're all safe and well. Welcome to another Disney Infinity tutorial. Now we're going to finish off the transporter and we're going to show you the full cycle of what your mission is related to blowing up the targets on the Conveyex, as well as then what we have to do with that ship. Now, as I've shown you in our last clip, we have the transporter fly around, we join and jump on again. So I'm just going to show you this again, but the focus on this clip and what we put together is how we get from here to actually trying to basically get the train to derail. And there's a number of different stages, and this transporter goes on more paths than you could possibly imagine. So what we're going to do is, when we jump onto the transporter, the carriage, you can see that the Conveyex in the corner just started to come through. But if we jump on over here, that triggers off the ship, and we've showed you all the logic how to get to this particular stage. Now, using Gamora to show us this, okay, so this bit you've already done, and we follow this through. So it's coming down on a curved path from the transporter, it hovers over the line, and then you'll notice it flickers down as it jumps onto a new path that follows the train. Now, as I mentioned in my previous clip, the train now has targets underneath the carriages which aren't easy to shoot, so you have to shoot them at an angle. So the object in this clip is to show you how to put those targets in there and how to get the effects that happen when we get all four targets. So you'll see here, as the train comes past, the thing drops down, just slightly flickered. If you're not looking, you won't miss it, and we're now on a completely new path. So this will now stay in an ever looping circle until we get those targets. Now, a couple of you pointed how good my shooting skills were last time, and admittedly, yeah, they are pants. They are getting slightly better, but as you'll see here, we have to shoot these. And when we shoot them, if I can get them, come on, let's show. Oh, there's one. We now have smoke appear, or we have flames appear. Yeah, so we'll get the second one as well. Oh, look, two on the first corner. We also get the troopers to join in, and they're going to call the grief and get in the way. So we're going to show each of those stages. Yeah, we're also then going to show you, once we've got all four targets, what's going to happen. Now, the original plan was try to pick up one of these carriages, and we were going to do, I think I mentioned that we were going to do the mission successful. We're going to be better than Solo and actually pinch the coaxium. That was way too complicated, and I really didn't have enough memory. So I thought, do you know what? We'll stick to the movie. We'll completely fluff our job up, and we'll have to abort the mission, and the train is going to go blowing up into the canyon. So what we do is, once we realise we can't do this and we have our attacks, we have to jump back onto the ship above before the train comes crashing down. So this ship will follow through, but as soon as we get all four targets, the ship will then take a new path and hover down by the side of us for us to jump back onto the ship. That's the plan, and this all hangs into the constraints of your PS4. So we have my new little camera angle, which I quite like. I'm going to keep this into the game. Can't shoot the targets from Toffee from this side, but at least you get to see the effect of what the actual gameplay looks like. My stormtroopers are still dying. Too funny. Right, so let's try and get these targets done. Now, what I also realised with this gameplay when I was recording this clip, if you just die, yeah, you die back onto the transport. You see, I died there on purpose. You report back onto the transporter. Now, the only problem I've got with this is that once we've got all four targets, we need to get back onto the transporter. So there was a slight glitch. Well, that's just great. Just die, and you'll automatically get back on it. So when we get our fourth target, we have to change our respawn point. Okay, so once we've got the full target, our target is that we have to get back. Basically, it respawns us back on the end of the train, and our mission now is to get off it, because otherwise we are going to die. Because I realised you could cheat. Right, so let's try and get this last target. So if I get this last one here, come on, have I got all four? Yes, so I've got all four now on the top there. So if I should die now, I don't respawn on top of the ship. So as I die, I now respawn at the back of the train. Okay, so there was the bit of the gameplay where I wanted you to keep having to jump down and time your jumping, but now that we've died, we've got to get back to that ship, because this thing is going to crash. It's a disaster. Yeah, now look at the spaceship. It's now going to drop onto another level. Okay, so a little just drop, and now the ship is going to fly away and break away from its normal path. So it's no longer following train, it's coming down to be level with the side. Now we've got one jump, because if we don't make that, we're going to go off and die with the train. So as it levels up, we've got to get our focus, and we have one chance to jump onto here. So we have to jump and make it, Excellent. Now that we've made it, the train is going to go off and go crashing, and sadly you're going to have to wait for the next clip for that one, but that is what's coming next. The train crash, I'm going to show it in its glory from every single angle possible. But in the meantime, I'm going to show you how I got the logic to get this transporter to change view and to get to this position. So let's go through and break that down for you. Now, one of the things I preach all the time is lay out your stuff in an organised manner, because when we come back to it, it makes our life so much easier to line this up. So what you'll see here is, because we've got them all set up nicely spaced out, I'm going to look at some targets, and I thought these little red targets were quite good. Yep. So I'm going to put these targets, and they're going to connect onto the path of the carriages. Now, I didn't do 5. I could have done. I did only 4, and the reason why I did 4 was I really thought I was pushing my luck. Yeah. These targets take up a lot of memory, so I thought, no, just do 4. 4 should be enough. If you're struggling with memory, bring that down to 3. Yeah. Now you'll notice here I'm also doing locators as well. Okay, they're important. Those are actually going to be for the effects that when you shoot them, you're going to get some smoke and some fire. So you'll see I've just got some target. I don't need a button. What do I need elsewhere? So we've got the targets. We do need the effects generator, and sadly we need effects generator for each one. Now the way the memory works, if you already used an effects generator before, it shouldn't take up too much memory. The memory is only taken up by using different objects all the time, so it has a slight little knock-on effect. Apart from collectibles, they do seem to gobble everything up on those, I think because they move around too much. So you'll see here I'm going to link all these locators to the effects generator, setting them all up. Yep, so set that across, and you'll see above my head on the screen there is where we set up all the stormtroopers on the last clip on the actual trains. We're doing exactly the same with these, and we're going to connect these up to the effects generator. Now the targets don't move, by the way, and they're in a position where we can't reach them, so you can only shoot these locators. So what we're going to do now is we want them between the 2 carriages. So what I did was I made sure I put it on the lower carriage. Yeah, so I attached it to that path. So logic connection and connect to that path. And the path has already been switched off, which is great because we've done it for the carriage. So what we're going to do now is go to the properties, because it appears in the middle of the carriage, and I now need to raise that up. And I think that's a bit, should see it, because I lower the other one down so they do get in the way, but that should be about spot on. And I now need to do that all for these particular 4 targets. So these are going to be there from the outset. Yeah, they're already switched on. The default setting when you load up the level is to be visible. There's no reset of this mission, by the way. If you die, you have to reload the whole flipping thing up. Yeah, I wasn't going to create all the logic to do a reset if you failed. You get 1 attempt at this. Yeah, and if you want to play it again, just reload it up. Because it's too big, it just take up too much memory to have like a reset button. Right, it's a new logic connection, new path connection. I'm going to connect it to the path, do the vertical and lift them up. But because again we've laid it all out nicely, we can see all of these, we can see which carriage goes on, and that's why we stacked them above themselves, so we could see that they were that cut pace. You'll notice there I moved the carriage by accident because I'm a numpty. What I should have done was move my mouse and select the target, which sometimes gets a little bit tricky, and I can move that up. Now when you move back between objects like this back and forth, it can crash the system, so you constantly save, right? And when you're pushing stuff to the limit of your saving, by the way, sometimes you can go over the memory, and then when you save it, it will never be able to load back up. So always have like multiple copies of your saves. If you had too many things and you've blown the memory, you can't get back into that level. I found that out when I did I was doing a level to do with how to restart a star, and I basically built it all and I went too big and I crashed the memory. So just be wary. I have about 2 or 3 versions just in case one should die. I can go back and make it less, so do that as well. Right, so we've now connected all those to the path. They will now move with it. Now the locators, I want them in different places, so I put the locators not on the carriages, I put the locators on the hinges because I want the smoke in the way. So I was looking whereabouts I wanted these to go. Yeah, so I'm going to connect these locators to those particular points. Yeah. And again, some of them are, because they're smoke effects, I could raise them up, I'll lift them up if I wanted to. So you'll see I've connected that path. Do I really need to move it? I don't need to. So what we do now is, when we collect or break that target, and you'll see that I've lined them all up, can we create an effect? And I'm going to play looped, and I'm choosing smoke. And then I'm going to have smoke plume, which will give me that trailing bit as the train moves along. Now I tried different types of effects. So this one I tried a fire one, Yeah. So what we're going to do on here is I'm going to connect that to the path, so new logic connection, new path connection, connected to the same path as the next carriage. So I'm just pinching the plots, by the way, because they go in two, so I want to make sure they're like a gap between it. The middle sections don't follow exactly, so you have to make sure you count them across. Right? So this is the second one. So I move this back across. So when that is broken, I'm going to do effect. So that's connected to there, which is brilliant. Now this one, because it's fire, I did rise it up slightly. Smoke didn't matter, but the one I thought, well, a fire will be in the middle. I want to actually see it, so I'm just going to lift it up too, so you can see it. And again, you can play around with the settings where you want to see it. If the fire's too into the brick, you won't see it on the screen. It sits on top of the rotating connectors. Okay, and the same thing here. New logic connection. When collected are broken, and now I did a fire effect. Now some of you on different consoles, that may push you over the edge. We've already got the smoke and it can handle that, but if it's having to do smoke and fire, you're doing two different types of effects, and that can gobble up your memory as well. So it may be worth just putting smoke constantly throughout the train. Yeah, and the more smoke you have, the less you can't see. So I tried fire and smoke. Again, the more different things you're doing, the more usable memory you're going to get. Now, with Disney Infinity, sometimes when the memory goes over the level, what tends to happen is it says, right, okay, level's blown, you've blown it. So what it does is it just, when it asks to trigger the next effect, it can't do because it's got no space, so it just ignores the command that you've set up. So it looks like a command doesn't work. It just means that I can't do it because there's too many things I'm doing at the moment, so it just disables it, even though they're already in place. So they're the one things you have to be wary of, and because we've made our map so big, it does really stretch it. But the one thing that worked with the train, which I wasn't realising, is the different turns, and you have a couple of them together, they worked really well, because when shooting the targets, as you line it up, it moves again, and that makes it so hard to do. So without realising it, having those turns actually gives the game that cooler effect. So try and keep a couple of turns in place. It makes it tricky with the path, don't get me wrong. I'm just doing the last one now. Connect this to the path. So this one I want on the end section. In fact, not too much in the end. I want it between the two, because there are those two on the very end, so that will be between 3 and 4. So they're the ones on the end. So just again, placing where you think these go. I'll have that on that one. And we'll have in that as a smoke plume as well, I think. And you can see this is really quite straightforward to do, and it's not that time consuming, so you'll know it's a very small little clip to add just those little finishing touches to the levels. Now I've broken obviously this level into multiple stages, and you don't have to do the exact same thing. You can pick and mix and use these little components for your own levels, but it gives you an idea how we can add an effect when we shoot a target. And there are our targets all set up. So now we have to do what happens when we've hit all those targets. So what we're going to focus on now is the actual transporter moving onto another path, and so we're going to need our path creator tool. Okay, and the sad thing is when we do a level as big as this, the path tool now becomes invisible, and it gets a real pain in the neck, and you start not liking the tool at all. You'll see lines start getting disappearing. So we need to make sure we can see those points. Yeah, so we've got the 3 paths for the train below, and then we've got the 3 paths above which relate to the transporter. Okay, so they sit above. So we've got those 3 dots. You can see one of the paths. So what we're just going to do is going to do one square directly below it, so the whole lot just drops down. Now this is going to take a new route. Now I timed this for the corner. So what you should notice here is as the train turns to the right and cuts the corner, we're just going to bring the spaceship to fly straight on. So actually the spaceship will overtake it because this path is the same speed as the train. So as the train turns right, we cut the corner and therefore get ahead of the train. Now you'll notice I've got a couple of corners, so this was the ideal place to bring your ship round. So if you're doing it on a straight path and the ship flies across, if the train doesn't slow down in any way, then your ship's going to be behind it and won't work. So I've picked it that the train keeps on taking these turns, so it allows my ship to get ahead of the train. So I'm just trying to, and at the same time I've got to bring the train down. So you'll notice I've lowered the path, and the one I'm doing first is the lower part of the carriage, because the 3 parts up there is the landing gear, the post in between the two, and the ship. So I'm now bringing it up, and now I'm going to level it up so it comes in level with the train, and it's going to stop. Now, one thing we are going to need to do is, before you get to the end, make sure you've got a series of path points. Because we don't want to get to the very end, because sometimes when it gets to the very end, it will then jump the ship back to the other end. We want the ship to stop and pause outside this particular area. So leave yourself a couple of little pointers, just so you've got, so we can do a stop start, so it not goes too close to the end. So that is now a new path for our ship to fly through, which is brilliant, right? So that's carriage. So we now need to do the same for exact same thing. Now, because we want it to mirror it, you've got to line up those points that you've done so it mirrors it exactly. So that's the first one done. So we want to come one square down from this box, and I'm now going to click the point on every single point I've done on the line below. Yep, and it's going to be directly above it. So you'll notice there's a gap of 2 between the two of these. 2. Yep. Not 3. Was it 3? I think it was 2. Maybe 3. I didn't realise. I thought that was 2. Just going to double check. 1, 2. Yeah, I did 3. I thought I did it wrong. What a plonker. Right. Bring back 1. So we go 2. So just stressing there, it's extremely important that you have the 2 boxes. You can see I'm double checking everything because I'm paranoid that I've messed this up. There you go. And we'll find the next point, move it up. Now occasionally if your lines disappear, you're looking for the points. Good job the points still stay. And if you can still see the screen, because white and yellow don't really go too well. But you could do the same version of this level, but just do it through Endor. Through an Endor train. Same thing, but just put trees everywhere. Probably make the track a little bit smaller because of the memory you're taking up, but you could do something similar on that. So we line these all up perfectly, and then we do the last one, and obviously the transporter is higher up, so we go back, but we know it's just 1 square down, which I think is 5 in total. So there's that, we've done that one, but again make sure you notice I've gone below the current path, yeah, so I've gone down 1, they've all gone down 1 from one path, so I have to make sure I go down from the other top. Right, so you'll know there's just 1 gap between the 2 there. Great, so I'm going to go on 2, 3, 4, 5. Right, so there's 5 to those dots, yeah? So we're just going to go 1 down, but it's 5. Yeah, so I'm just counting that gap between the 2. Right, so therefore, if I lower it 1, I've got to go 1 down. So 1 down, click, path now carries along. So I know that's straightforward on there. Right, so we then go across the next one. Now I'm making sure I'm lining it up with the actual path, which I did the same to. Now we're going to go off tangent. Right, so now where's that other dot? So I'm trying to line it up. Now the reason why I'm double checking it about 17 times is that sometimes I'm doing this late at night. I wait till I've got the PlayStation to myself, and I'm doing this very late at night, and I keep losing count. So we should write it down on a piece of paper, tends to help you out. But I have to go back and check because I'm so tired at night. Was it 5? Was it 6? And I've forgotten already while I'm building it. Right, let's go. Go on there, that's it. So I've lost count already. What is that? Also, my controller was, I think, sticking, so that made me lose count even more. And this didn't affect my memory at all, actually, the partal. I thought this was going to kill. I thought it was just too many parts. Because we haven't even got to the partal when the train crashes. So I was really panicking this would blow it, but it didn't. So because we've already used part, it realises it's got that set aside in memory, so it's still okay. I did have to lose the big giant grey rocks from the speed run, which I quite liked. You'll notice there to the right where the AT-AT is, I had a big rock thing. That was taking too much, so those 2 had to go, sadly. So I got rid of a few little objects just to free the memory up, so I could have the crash that I wanted. And last 1, 2, 3. Right, so that's the ship where it's going to go. It's all going to stop and start from there. So we now have our path in place, ready to go on there. So when we shoot our targets, we now want this ship to move onto the other line, but only once we've got our targets. So what I'm going to need to do here is I need to make sure that we can jump between these particular fields. Yeah, so we moved on to this particular line. Yeah, these points where we're going. And you saw I was not too happy with the curve. I thought, yeah, I could get rid of those, but no, I'm going to keep them in. Right, so what we're going to do with these tools, we're going to have to make sure the speed of the train is going the same speed, so we set these to 200. We do not switch the train thing off, it doesn't need to go off yet. So you leave it on, all to 200. And like I say, the train clip is the actual derailment. I'm just going to play that in my next clip. Show you how to do that, and then the clip that follows that is going to be show you how we did the derailment. But I thought we'd just show you the crashing in all its glory, how it crashes, and from every possible angle. So stay tuned for that. It should, if this comes out this weekend, it should be out on Wednesday. I'm planning for Wednesday around about 5 PM. So those that are watching, my clip will be out at 5 PM. You'll see my memory panicking a little bit, but don't worry, it's still quite good. Right, so we need this logic gate here, okay? This logic gate is going to manage the path, right? So we're going to go on to this one, right. So this one is going to turn it off. So new logic connection, on output, can we turn off these paths? That means the ship will stop. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to switch this off, and I'm going to do that for all three of these. So new logic connection, on output, can we turn this off? Now obviously we're going to move this logic gate out of the way in a moment, but it's just so I can connect it quite easily. New logic connection, on output, can you turn the path off? Okay, so we're using that logic gate to actually stop the ship, so we're going to fly the ship all the way over here. Dun, dun, dun. Right, so not at the very end, because sometimes when it jumps at the end it will come back to the beginning, so just moved it across. So I only have to pick one point, and we can say here, new logic connection, when point reaches on path, you only have to pick one of those points, yeah? That will input into that gate, which will stop the spaceship and keep it hanging there waiting for us to land, which is quite cool. Right, and that logic actually is done, so we can grab that and we can move that out the way and down with the rest of my logic. And we can place this down here, dun, 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 and we'll just leave that to the side. That switches everything off. Done. Okay, so what do we need to do next? Well, what we need to do is those targets. What happens when we get those targets of 4? Yeah, so I'm going to need to know we've got all 4 targets. Now I've already got collectibles already being used, so I'm going to keep these separate. I could use the collectible tracker, but I'm not. I'm going to keep this separate. So I'm just going to get a little counter here, very simple. Yeah, and I'm going to set that counter to 4. Right, and when I break each one of these little targets, I'm going to increment it. So new logic connection, when collected or broken, can we increase that counter by 1? Nice and easy. Increment that by 1. Yep, and we do the same again. New logic connection. When collected or broken, increase that counter by 1. We're going to do all those for this one. And the same for this one as well. And you keep doing that until all 4 are done. Yep. And that's why you saw when the ship was going around, you saw I get a counter of 4 appearing. So, new logic connection. Broken and collected. There you go. So we now have our target of 4 done. Okay. So we need to change the properties of that, because the default setting is 1. So we go to properties and we change that. Also the default is 2, but we change it to 4 now. So our target is now 4. Okay, so what we're going to do is we need some logic gates. Okay, I need 3. I'll do one to start with, but we need a logic gate, and each logic gate is for each path, and we're going to close these gates. So we're going to see here, new logic connection, when target reached, can you close that gate? Can you close it? And we need to do that for the other 2 paths, so I need another 2 logic gates here. So let's just, I forgot that to start with, so let's get another 2 logic gates in. So I'm going to put in 2 more logic gates. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's line them up for a path, and again the other 2 paths same again. So new logic connection, when target reach, can we close the gate? Right, so new logic connection, because obviously a default view for a logic gate is that they're always open and the signal goes through. We want them only closed. The effect only happens when they're closed, and they only get closed when you get to that target of 4. Right, so now we've got those set up. Right, what we need to do now is we need now to link the path to this logic gate. Each path will then send a signal through, and if that gate is closed, it's going to jump to another path. Now I've laid them out in order to follow the 3 paths that we've just done. So you'll see here I've zoomed right out, but I need to find where we've done our little join. So you notice, look up here, there are our 3 points because we can see the green points. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do a question, right? When the ship flies along that point, right, on that point, what we need it to say is when the point goes to that point, new logic connection, when point reached on path, let's go and input to that logic gate. Now when we input to that logic gate, it's going to be closed, right, because we've reached our target. So if we input into there, so it's only going to be closed once our target reached. So new logic connection, when the input is blocked, so it now knows that we have got 4, the mission is a disaster, jump ship, we are going to tell it when it reaches is blocked, can we move onto the green dot? So can we connect the triggering actor, so connect the triggering actor to the path, and that will now move the ship from that path to the other, which will now follow the line through to the ship. Yeah, now we need to do that for the other 2 paths. So we take the next one, new logic connection when point reached on path. Now this is the second one down, so we pick the second logic gate, again keeping the order so you can track back where it went. So we want the middle one. Be confusing if you mix them up. So we're going to input into there. If the input is blocked, because obviously while it's not got your 4, you just want it to keep going round. Yeah, now the input's blocked, brilliant. We're going to go back into here, and we're going to say, right, when input is blocked, can we connect triggering actor to the second path? So connect to that one there, the one above it, connect the triggering actor to the path. So the ship is going to be on 3 different sets of paths, and it will keep moving depending on where you are in your game. So the ship does one job, it flies down, it then joins and follows the train, you get your targets, then jumps onto another train. So same thing again on the final one, which is the end thing. When point reaches on path, can we input into this gate? Alright, new logic connection when input is blocked. Right, and it's not output, it's blocked. Because if it's an output, it'll do it every single time. Yeah, it's got to be unblocked. We are going to do the last one and says, right, move the whole thing now onto here. So we now know we've finished following the train now. So once we're on this next path, this path is going to be what triggers the train explosion, is going to trigger everything. So now the ship will follow along this path and fly along here. Now, like I just showed previously, on one of those gates there, when it gets to that point, it will fire that signal to that gate. And you'll see here I got lost because I couldn't remember which one I did, but it was actually the middle path that I chose, and it was the one second to the end. You'll see here I got frantically confused. And I only did it a few minutes ago, but it was this one, that one, goes down to that logic gate, which will then input a signal there and turn off them, and the ship will be stationary. Now the thing we're going to do now is we're going to do the next trigger point, okay? Because on playing it, I realised I could cheat. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create another trigger point, but this trigger point wants to go on top of the last carriage, okay? So I'm going to grab this trigger point, and I'm making sure the red dot, by the way, is facing downwards, facing the path away down the screen, yep? And I'm going to connect it to the path that fits that carriage. So I'm going to connect on that path where it is, not the bottom one, it's that one. So I'm going to connect it to there, and you now notice checkpoints in the middle of that, so that's no good. I've got to raise it up. Yeah, so I'm going to do new vertical settings, toy box path, and I'm going to raise that up to so it sits on top of the train. Now, if the player should go to the end of the train and step on it anyway, it would automatically trigger it. I can't switch that off, which is not a bad thing. Yeah. But what we do is we're not going to have it on display so you cannot see it. Yeah, so we're not going to see the trigger point on the train. It's going to be all ready to go. It does changes them all, so once anyone goes on it, it's there. So we made sure you can't see it. It's hidden from view, right? Which is fine. All we've got to do now is just activate it when it flipping happens. Yeah, and we know when that happens is when we get the target of 4. So that counter is going to be the thing that does it. I'm just showing you the settings here, what I did with that gate. There wasn't any other quick way of disabling the setting. Okay, but that's now set up. So what I need to quickly go through is very quickly go to our counter and say over here, right, when target is reached, when we hit this target here, so new logic connection, when target reached, can we activate the checkpoint? And we are now on the train and not on the spaceship. Can we set the checkpoint, which now puts us there on top of the back of the train. And that is the logic for this chase. So we just do a little bit of a recap what we've just done and see what it looks like. So like I say, when you die, you on the ship, so you have to jump down. You have to time your jump correctly, which I quite like that. But once we get our target of 4, that respawn up there is going to stop, and we're going to respawn at the back of the train. Okay, we'll get our crazy suicidal stormtroopers. I've got to hit that target in time. Get out of the way, guys. And I've kept the counter on there so that when you get the 4, you'll see that on the screen. The smoke and all the special effects are happening because we've hit the previous targets. That's covering up and hiding the stormtroopers, so I can't even shoot them. I need to get that shot. Right, now I've got 4. That checkpoint, it says great, and it says right, we hit our target of 4. Now the respawn is now moved to the end of the trains. Now that we die, we respawn at the end of the train. Also, now that we've done that, those 3 logic gates have now been closed. So when this ship gets across the point, which is just here around the corner, that will hit the ticket, those logic gates. They're closed, so therefore the ship will bounce onto the next path. So you'll see they all drop down, chink. They all move down, and we now follow a separate path. And because we've got these corners, yeah, the ship will now overtake the train. So they're both running at the same speed, but because we're doing a shortcut direct line, by the time we get it, now gives me time to line up my jump. And it's now waiting for us, and our final part of the mission is to jump on the train onto the ship, and we've done. And now all I've got to show you now is the train crashing. Cheers guys, catch you soon.